Development Control Meeting, 9th of July 2020. Meeting participants: Councillor Frank Cant, Chair; Councillor Mark Payne, Vice Chair; Councillors Afrasiab Anwar, Gordon Birtwistle, Ivor Emo, Sue Graham, Sarah Hall, John Harbour, Alan Hosker, Mohammed Ishtiaq, Marcus Johnston, Anne Kelly, Lubna Khan, Neil Mottershead and Jeff Sumner. Supporting officers: Paul Gattrell, Head of Housing and Development Control; Alec Hickey, Planning Manager; Emma Barker, Principal Legal Officer; Imelda Grady, Democracy Officer; Alison McEwen, Democracy Officer; Amanda Rumbelow, Legal Officer; Molly Wiggin, Legal Assistant; Christine Wood, Democracy Officer. We also have 3 members of the public under the Right to Speak scheme: Claire Bradley, Gavin Bowlby and Brian Sumner. Thank you, Chair.
Right, yeah, thank you, Alison. Right, we'll start off down the agenda. First thing is, have we any apologies?
I've recorded apologies from Councillor Chowdhury.
Right, thank you. And minutes of the last meeting. Would anyone like to move them?
I'll move it, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for the...
I'll second it, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Marcus. Additional items of business?
There are none, Chair.
Right, thank you. And declarations of interest.
I understand Councillor Ishtiaq is going to declare an item in the application for Elm Street.
For Elm
yes,
Street.
Chair.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. And next item, exclusion of the public.
As the agenda, Chair.
As per the agenda, thanks very much for that. So we'll move on now. Well, in fact, before I move on, just going to ask if everyone's read the late correspondence. I've no doubt it'll be referred to within the officers' presentations, but we have some late correspondence regarding Vicarage Avenue, Elm Street and Maybury Avenue. Just letting members be aware of that. And I'll move on now to the list of deposited plans and applications, and start off with the first item, which is the land at Vicarage Avenue, Padiham. On this item, we have one speaker. No, sorry, we have 2 speakers. Is there any preference who wants to go first?
Chair, it's usually the speaker again, so it will be Claire Bradley first.
Right, yeah, fine, that's so Claire, you have 5 minutes from whenever you 5 minutes in which to present your case.
Right. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes.
hear. Well, I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. Right. Well, this application is the resubmission of a previous refusal. And I'm speaking on behalf of the residents of completely surrounding the site. So Worley Road, Blackburn Road and Vicarage Avenue. And what our concerns are is that this application is very little different from the previous application that was refused. But one of the main things that concerns is the residential amenity of the site. Now, if you look at the report, if you look at photograph 6, it shows the houses on Worley Road, the back of the houses on Worley Road, which are south facing, so all have a balcony on the back. Now, if you look at the levels plan that the applicant has submitted, the level of the gardens within the site is 108.3. And if you look at that photo, the curb height there is 109.9. So that's already 1.5 meters lower than the curb on there. Now, if you think about those balconies, they're another 1.5 meters, 2 meters higher. You're talking people sitting on there are 11 foot, 3 meters, 11 foot higher than those people sat in the gardens in plots 1 and 2. Now, I understand that they've reorientated the houses to address the actual privacy within the houses, but surely the privacy so you want some privacy in your garden. You don't want buildings towering above you, 10 meters higher than what you are. And that is a real concern for the residents, because not only is it their amenity using their balconies and the back of their houses, but it's also the amenity of the residents of the new development. So, yeah, so that is one of the major concerns. The other being that this is like a small low-level bungalows in an area that is traditionally 2 and, looking at these 3-story terraced houses, how is that in keeping with the character of, the surrounding area? And that's really, we just want to keep reiterating that it's all about the residential amenity of the existing occupants and the future occupants of the bungalows. And also, the original application, the Highway Authority objected. Well, they didn't object, but they commented that the access to Vicarage Avenue was a 1 in 4 incline, which they didn't see as being, suitable. So there's no difference between that application and this application in the levels proposed. So again, why was last time it not okay? And this time it is okay. So it's just really just reiterating all those things. And we feel that really this application should be refused. Maybe the site will come forward for development at some time in the future, but it's not this scheme. This scheme is not acceptable. Now, thank you for your time. I don't need the whole of 5 minutes.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. Right, so if we move on, we have another speaker. Is it Brian Sumner? Are we still?
The call has been unmuted. Right. Can you hear me, Chairman?
Oh, yes, I can. Yes, thanks.
Thank you very much. Shall I start now?
Yeah, whenever you wish. You've got the same. You've got 5 minutes in which to
5 minutes. I'll be brief as
present your case.
Thank you. I am Brian Sumner from Avalon Town Planning. I'm the agent on the application. As the objector speaker said, this is a resubmitted application following the council's previous refusal. And that's important for 2 reasons. One, the application specifically addresses the 2 reasons for refusal given on that application. And 2, the previous refusal does not offer any principal objection in terms of whether the site should be developed or not. That is because the site complies with the settlement strategy of your development plan adopted in 2018. What I would say, Chairman, is that it's important for a council to follow its own development plan. That's what the Planning Act requires. You have a very comprehensive officer report which addresses the relevant planning policies, which are quite comprehensive and difficult to follow, but the applicant has managed to achieve those, not only in terms of the principle of development, but also the issues that the objector was pointing out in relation to privacy distances. The site's been rejigged and reorganised and redesigned to meet those standards which the council has laid down and which the applicant has met. By the end of the day, Chairman, what you have here are 6 2-bedroom bungalows, and I'm quite confident that once the development is built and the type of people that are likely to occupy those bungalows, the development will fit in with its surroundings quite seamlessly and without causing any problem. What's not being proposed here is a major housing scheme or a high-rise scheme or anything of that nature, which people would understandably find objectionable. in summary, Chairman, what you have is an application which complies with your own development policies. We've complied with all the statutory consultee responses. We've negotiated that with them at length to make a suitable scheme. And I think it would be not bear well for the council, Chairman, if the council was to refuse this application without any technical or development plan support. And in the event the applicant was forced to go down the route of appealing the application, I'm pretty sure that any independent inspector will follow those guidelines that your council has set out and put before you in the officer report. So I'm hopeful, Chairman, that bearing those lawful points in mind, this committee will support the application and its own development plan and its officer recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Yep, thank you very much, Mr. Sumner. So we move forward to the officer's report. I understand that that Paul Gattrell will be presenting the report.
It'll be myself, Chair, Alec.
Oh, it's right. Yeah. Okay, Alec. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. Go ahead whenever you wish.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so the application is FUL 2020-0147. So it's the erection of 6 bungalows with garages, access, landscaping and ancillary works. As pointed out, it is a resubmission application, one that was submitted in 2019. It was refused for 2 reasons. The first being the design and layout, failure to respond to the surrounding context. The second being the close relationship with properties along Whalley Road. Subsequently, the applicant has gone away and looked to address those concerns, and I'll just run through the application. So, as noted, the site is within the defined development boundary. There were no local plan designations on the site. And the site has never been developed, so would be considered an undeveloped greenfield site. It is noted that most of the trees and shrubbery have been removed from the site. However, that doesn't require any consent and could have been done at any time. As you see from the pictures in the report, they sort of give an idea of the relationship of where the property sits and the surrounding context of the area. The bungalows themselves would be 2-bedroom with lounge, kitchens, private garden spaces and detached garage. Proposed materials are a mixture of natural slate, stone with cream UPVC windows. It's noted that some plots are more generously sized than others, but on the whole, there are adequate amenity space provided, and the provision of bin storage is there as well. With regards to the elevational details of the site, there would be an entrance gate with pedestrian access either side, and a 1.8 metre timber high fence, which would be used to secure the general outline of the site alongside being in between properties. You will see in the report the changes that I've made to the elevations, the inclusions of porch and sort of refinements to materials. In regards to consultation responses, we've had a fair number of responses come back. The statutory consultees raised no objection. As you'll see alongside highways, there are a number of conditions that would need to be achieved, but there's no objection held. And I'll just point out that there was no reason for refusal from highways on that first application as well. Alongside the application that was refused last year, there was a previous application in 2008 for a 60-bed nursing home, but that was dismissed on appeal. There has been a high number of objections come in. Again, one from Padiham Town Council and the Padiham Community Action Group, and also from 2 of the ward councillors. We'll go through those in detail, but they are out in the. A total of 46 objections have been received that raise a number of issues. principally those are addressed within the report, and we have had one letter of support in favour of the application. The principle of the development, when assessed against the local plan, is established. It is noted that the site was looked at as part of the SHLA, but there were other preferred sites. However, the site itself, being within the urban boundary, is in a sustainable location, and the principle of development is therefore supported, subject to achieving compliance with other relevant policies. With regards to design, that's been thoroughly looked at, as mentioned before. It was refused previously on design, and the refinements to try and incorporate features that would be more in keeping with the surrounding area have been put forward. Things like bay windows and porches, just to enhance the design. In terms of the housing mix itself, the policy HS3 does set out a housing mix, and the development does fall short of the density required. But sort of considering the layout and what's been achieved, it's considered that a lower density is acceptable in this regard, and wouldn't be a reason to look to refuse the application. With regards to residential, again, the applicant has gone away and looked at what can be done to address that, which has resulted in the orientation of the buildings being changed, and the actual separation distances now are considered compliant, and wouldn't give rise to any harmful relationship should the development be approved. So again, a number of objections have come forward with traffic and parking. Lancashire County Council Highways have had a considerable amount of contact with the case officer, and they have set out their comments and conditions that they'd require, noting that parking standards are achieved, and there would be the need for the section of the road to be created to the standard that they would expect, and that is set out in the conditions. A number of comments also made about the impact on the nearby heritage asset, which would be Bag's Farmhouse. The council's conservation officer has looked at it in detail and assessed it against the relevant local and national planning policies to protect heritage assets and found it to be acceptable. As noted, a number of comments have come in that the site was cleared prior to the application. As it currently stands, there's no requirements that it is left until an application comes in before us. However, even in that regard, the site has been looked at by the council specialists with regards to ecology, and they've found that it wouldn't have supported a habitat of biodiversity value, and therefore don't consider an assessment was necessary, and are happy with the scheme as proposed. It is noted in the report that it does seek to address some of the neighbour objections and clarify the site isn't within the green belt. However, it is greenfield, and I think it is just being clear on that distinction. And again, highways noting that subject to the conditions, it would meet the local and national guidelines. Just with regards to the update report, it was just pointed out there was a couple of inquiries from a councillor about Japanese knotweed. The council's head of amenities and green space is aware that there is Japanese knotweed in the vicinity, not on the site. As such, an informative has been recommended. Similarly, it was known that deer had attended the site, but again, there is no special designation protections. Deer are a transient species, and they will be found within the sort of rural-urban fringe. Similarly, some of the photos, just to clarify, that they are just to advise what the relationship is with the surrounding area, and officers have put those in just to assist members. I think I've gone through the objections around the greenbelt status. And then finally, with regards to flood risk and drainage, it doesn't lie within designated flood zone, and the relevant consultees have offered no objection subject to conditions. Therefore, Chair, we recommend approval of the application subject to the conditions set out and the amended condition noted in the update report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ali. Do we have any member wish to speak?
Yes, Chair. Councillor Graham has requested to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Right,
hear you.
good. This site has been the subject of a lot of discussion over the years. And Mr. Sumner and Alec Hickey are right to say that the site is within the urban boundary and therefore would generally comply with the policies in the local plan. However, you'll be aware that preparing a local plan is a long and detailed process, and this site has been assessed on a number of occasions. It's been rejected in 2014 and 2017. It's been considered for housing in both those strategic housing land assessments and rejected. In 2014, it was because other sites were preferred to the loss of this attractive open space in an area of high density housing. And then the owners put forward the site in the call for additional sites as part of the planning process. And this was considered by a sustainability appraisal in 2017. And it was that sustainability appraisal raised concerns about the impact of any development on 2 Grade 2 listed buildings, and also stated that there would be significant negative effects on environmental quality and minor negative impacts on biodiversity and landscape. Now, we know that the owners have ruined the site as far as biodiversity is concerned, and it always bugs me when owners potentially reap the rewards of environmental vandalism. I go on to talk about the local plan examination in public in 2017. It considered all submissions from landowners, and the inspector in his report did not identify this site for inclusion as a housing site in the local plan. In fact, the inspector felt that we had too many sites, housing allocations in the local plan, and reduced the housing requirement for the borough from 204 to 194 dwellings per annum. So you can argue the policy issue either way, basically. You can argue for and you can argue against the proposal. But my feeling is to fall down on the side of being against the proposal. It's a small and insignificant site within an urban area. It serves a purpose as an amenity area. It serves a purpose as a setting for 2 listed buildings. And I do believe that we should refuse this application. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Was that a proposal for rejection?
I'm happy to move for rejection.
Right. Okay, thank you.
We
Thanks for
have,
that.
Chair, we have councillors Johnston, Harbour and Hosker who wish to speak.
Yeah, I'll take them in the order that you've just given me. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Chair. Am I unmuted?
You're fine now, Marcus.
Yeah.
Right, that's good. Chair, I'd like to agree with what Councillor Graham said. The grounds for refusal last time, which are outlined on page 19, as far as I'm concerned, nothing has changed. This development is detrimental to the character and appearance of the area, and also the privacy distances remain a problem. Chair, I'm also very minded of what the Highway Authority said. While the Highway Authority hasn't raised objections, and I can understand the reasons for that, they have pointed out that there'll be a considerable number, if you go to page 26, in the italicized section, the middle paragraph there in italics, where the Highway Authority points out the number of HGV movements that will be necessary. Yeah, this is an entirely inappropriate site for a development. I think we need to remember as well that Vicarage Avenue is a one-way street, and also that Blackburn Road and Worley Road are both major roads leading into Padiham. So with all these things in mind, Chair, if it hasn't already been seconded, I'd like to second that we turn down this application.
Right, yeah. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Harbour.
Thank you, Chair. Could I ask colleagues to look at page 32 of the report, where it talks about designs and appearance. And for those people who can't see the report, I'll just read it out. Paragraph 124 of the National Planning Policy Framework states that the creation of high quality buildings and places is fundamental to what planning and development process should achieve. Good design is a key aspect of sustainable development, creates better places in which to live and work, and helps make development acceptable to communities. Paragraph 130 of the same statement talks about that permission should be refused for the development of poor design that fails to take the opportunities available for improving the character and the quality of an area and the way it functions. So my question there, Chair, is, are we really being serious in saying that introducing 6 bungalows onto this site will improve the character and the quality of this area and the way it functions? I would also like to ask colleagues to look at on page 33. And on page 33, it talks about the attractiveness of bay-fronted terrace properties on Vicarage Avenue. But in my opinion, it underplays the substantial properties along Blackburn and Worley roads that overlook this site. This area of Padiham is one of the most attractive neighbourhoods within our town. So how on earth will these 6 bungalows improve this area? And if we just have a look at the new and improved scheme, and my question there is, what inspired changes have they come up with to improve the offer in this late submission? And in the report, it talks about bay-fronted windows with a porch to add some interest. And yes, 6 detached garages to add further interest. So bay-fronted windows and detached garages and everything's fine. Are we really saying that as a planning committee for this council, that this is the best we can do for the people of Padiham? The report also acknowledges that the latest layout is not typical for the area. You know, and this is fundamental. You're talking about 6 bungalows being squeezed into the heart of a community. It's not on the boundaries or at the side or the entrance, it's actually there within its heart. There might be a demand for bungalows, Chair. I'm not disputing that. But in my opinion, and I hope for the committee's opinion as well, there are far more suitable areas within our town that would benefit bungalows being built. And can I just give an example on the old county primary site on Burnley Road? Wouldn't it be great, Chair, if officers of our council, our county councillor, get in touch with their colleagues at Preston and actually make something like that happen? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Harbour. And we've got Councillor Oscar. You'd like to speak?
First of all, I will be going against this application tonight. I have also got concerns about traffic and problems and it being a one-way system. And I endorse what the other 3 councillors have just said. I'm in full agreement. Regarding Councillor Harbour's comments there, I will be having a word with County Council about the land, about what we're going to be a so-called petrol station. So I'd like John Harbour to know his comments are endorsed. Regarding this application, I'm going to be in full support of going against this application based on what Claire Bladwell said, which makes common sense. based on what the residents have said, which makes, again, common sense. I'm in agreement with them. My 2 ward councillors have been on the case and they've been looking into this thoroughly and they're against it. So I'll, again, be going against his application and supporting Padiham Town Council, who, again, has sensibly gone against his application.
Right, thanks very much.
Chair,
Yes,
Councillor Kelly has requested to speak.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you very much. I went to look at this the other day, and the land that's there is an awful mess. I must admit, I would vote to approve this application. It's a nasty piece of land that's all overgrown. It was dirty, filthy, and I do think it's one of those that it's very difficult to picture what the bungalows would look like. But although I've only come back to planning this year, I have had considerable experience on the planning committee. I was on for about 10 years before that. So, you know, I have been here before. And I do think a lot of it is concern about what it will look like. And once it's actually there, people tend to accept it a lot more. I can't find a reason to vote against it, and I will be voting for approval.
Right, thank you
Good,
very much. Have we any further comments from?
Chair, Councillor Payne wishes to speak.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, Councillor Payne, go ahead whenever you're ready.
I'm in agreement with Councillor Kelly. I went up to have a look at this yesterday, and the ground isn't a local amenity. It's scrubland and it's very unseemly. I haven't heard yet a really good planning reason for turning this down. There's been nothing yet that has been given. It seems once, you know, we've had some councillors saying there that it's a local amenity, well, it's somebody else's land. We haven't got the right to tell a landowner that his land is for the other residents to use. I feel that there is no reason being given, and unless somebody can come up with a decent reason why this is going to be turned down, I'm going to vote for it as well.
Right, thank you very much for that. Right, any further? Yes.
Chair, sorry, the legal officer does wish to speak, and Councillor Graham has asked to speak again.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask Councillor Graham to speak because obviously she's moved for rejection. So I was going to ask Councillor Graham on what grounds she's going to move for rejection. But yeah, meanwhile, legal, is it Amanda?
It's Emma, Chair.
Oh, Emma, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to say, Chair, that if we're looking at refusing this application, then I need to give some legal advice in the private forum, Chair.
Right.
Which Alison will accommodate perhaps after Councillor Graham's spoken.
Yeah. Would you like to speak first, Councillor Graham, before we move to legal advice?
Chair, sorry, Chair, can I just ask you to pause for a minute? We've lost somebody from the meeting and I just need to check who that is. So I'm just going to pause the live stream for a second.
Right, yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Right,
I think Councillor Graham was going to speak.
yeah, have we still got Mr. Sumner's? Yeah, I can see.
Which one?
Yeah, right, no, not you, Jeff. Yeah, no, Brian Sumner. I can still see his picture. But is he in this? I presume we've gone to private, haven't we?
No, Chair, we haven't yet. We were going to
Right.
listen to Councillor Graham first.
Right, fine. That's no problem. Yeah. So yeah, Councillor Graham then.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've moved for refusal of the application, and the reason, there are three reasons that I would give. One is traffic and highways. It's the issue that I think Councillor Johnson spoke about the impact on the surrounding roads, particularly the one-way Vicarage Road. Privacy, which was a reason before, and I don't think that the new scheme changes that. And then the design of the bungalows is incompatible with the character of the surrounding area and the two listed buildings adjacent. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thanks a lot for that. So we intend now, I think, to take legal advice. If we could facilitate that, please.
We will, Chair. I'll just move the meeting off live YouTube, and then we'll deal with the formalities of that. Thank you, Chair.
Right, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, Councillor Graham, can I ask if you, I believe you wish to speak, have you any sort of comments regarding the legal advice that we've just been given?
Yeah, I understand the legal advice perfectly, and I understand that if highways are content with traffic, parking, etc., then that's a dodgy ground for a refusal. And similarly, the privacy issue. But I still have concerns about the design of the layout and the design of the bungalows. To my mind, they are totally incompatible with the character of the Victorian terraces and the two listed buildings adjacent to the site. That in and of itself would be sufficient grounds for a refusal, in my estimation. I also think it's really galling to me that someone who ruins a really lovely piece of land seems to be rewarded for that action by making a total mess of it, and therefore people like Councillor Kelly saying development would be an improvement. If you'd have seen that site beforehand, you'd have been really upset at the way it was dealt with by the owner. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks. So you're it was seconded by Councillor Johnston. Are you happy to remain as a seconder to Councillor Graham and on the grounds that she's just stated? Councillor Johnston?
Sorry, I wasn't done. I'm muted now.
Right,
Yes,
yeah.
I am happy to stay as a seconder.
You're still, yeah. You understand what Councillor Graham's put forward then? Yeah.
Yes, and I've heard the legal advice, and I'm
Right, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
fine.
where I
I
am.
just want to check.
Thank you.
Chair, apologies. Councillor Hosker and Councillor Harbour have asked if they could speak again briefly, having heard the advice.
Yeah, well, I'll take them again in the order you gave me. If Councillor Harbour wishes to come in, if you make it brief.
I'll make it very brief, Chair. I think it
Yeah,
was Councillor Oscar who came in before me, so.
Oh, well, sorry.
Thank you.
Oscar.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I agree totally with Councillor Graham. What she says, it'll spoil the outlook of the area. And myself, we always defend Greenfield land. And what I will say, Anne Kelly, in your remarks when you said about the field being a mess, you're correct in what you said. My argument would be on that, if the developers hadn't to put the foot, forward, making a mess of that field, and then decided to put in for planning permission, then it wouldn't have been such a mess. And I might add on that, there were some trees cut on that field, what shouldn't have been taken out. Thank you.
Right, yeah, thanks, Councillor Oscar. And yeah, you come back in, John, Councillor Harbour.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, Chair, regarding the issue of privacy, again in the report, and again this is my understanding, I'm not saying I've read this properly, but my understanding is out of the 6 bungalows which are being proposed, 2 of them don't meet the criteria of falling out at 20 metres. And on the grand scale of things, if we were looking at a development which proposed 100 houses, and a third of 33 of those properties didn't meet the privacy criteria, we won't be discussing the application. But we only seem to be discussing it because it's only 6 bungalows crammed into a little open area in an already developed neighbourhood. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Now, I think we need a response at this point from planning officer. Would you like to come back in, Ali, and respond?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I think just echoing the comments that we said previously in terms of highways, that there hasn't been a highways objection. Coming on to privacy, sort of in the elements of the report, it does state where there is a shortness of distance, but if you'll note the design of the property's orientation and the use of obscure glazing, that's sufficient to ensure that there isn't a harmful impact on amenity. And obviously that is why it's supported in that manner from the officer and recommended. With regards to design, obviously that was a reason for refusal in the first application, and officers that have looked at the appropriate changes for this scheme, and they feel that they are in keeping. Obviously, design is a subjective matter, but the features that were requested were incorporated into design. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks very much. Unless we have any other members wishing to speak, I think I'll move to the vote. It has been moved and seconded for rejection on the grounds that it's not compatible with the surrounding properties. And again, I can't remember the exact wordings that Councillor Graham came out with, but I think we've all got the gist of it.
Chair, would you like me to?
Oh yes,
Would you like me to read that?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It was about the layout and the design isn't in keeping with the character of the area of the Victorian terraces and the two listed buildings adjacent, and that was the reason for refusal.
Yeah.
I think if Councillor
Thanks very much for that.
Graham wants to. Okay.
So if we'd like to move to the vote,
Chair,
yes,
can I request
is that
a name vote?
Councillor Oscar?
Can I request a name vote, please?
Well,
it will
yes,
be.
Chair,
Yes,
it will be
a
a
name vote. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're going for refusal of this application. Can members vote for refusal or against refusal or abstain? Councillor Anwar.
For refusal.
Or against refusal. Thank you. Councillor Birtwistle. Councillor Birtwistle, you're muted at the moment.
Right, I'll unmute all members. If everybody could just remain silent unless it's your vote.
Thank you. Councillor Birtwistle.
Against.
Councillor Cant.
For.
Councillor Childers not here. Councillor Emo.
For.
Councillor Graham.
For refusal.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Councillor Harbour.
For refusal.
Councillor Hosker.
Can I just say, for refusal, but can councillors be more clear than what they're voting for, please? What? Well, Councillor Birtwistle there went against, and he didn't say whether it's going against, whether it's against the application. I didn't understand him.
Councillor Birtwistle.
I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was doing.
You were voting against refusal. Is that correct? Thank you. Councillor Ishtiaq.
For refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston.
For refusal.
Councillor Kelly.
Against.
Councillor Lubna Khan.
For refusal.
Councillor Mottershead.
For refusal.
Councillor Mottershead. Councillor Mottershead voting.
He voted for refusal.
For refusal.
Sorry, I didn't hear. Councillor Payne.
Against.
Councillor Sumner.
For refusal.
Okay. The item is refused.
Right, thank you. Right, so we'll move on now.
Chair, sorry to interrupt, but at this point in a normal meeting, the speakers may choose to leave. So I don't know if Brian and Claire would like to leave or if they want to stay for the rest of the meeting.
No, thank you, and I'll choose to leave. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, that's fine.
Leave me.
Okay, so they've both left now, Chair.
Right. So move forward again. Bearing in mind we've got a big agenda tonight. The next one is Elm Street Nursery School, New Hall Street. And on this one, we've got.
There are no speakers, Chair.
Oh, no, there's no yeah, I'm just checking. Yeah, with no speakers, and I believe Alec is.
If you could just bear with us, Chair, while we move Councillor Ishtiak into the waiting room as he's declared an interest.
Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Ishtiak is in the waiting room now.
Time to go ahead, Chair.
Yeah, it's all right. I was muted. Yeah, so yeah, if Alec will come in and present his report, I'll be. It's over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so this is application FUL 2020-0015 for the demolition of the existing nursery to make way for a purpose-built warehousing, which should be 7 individual units that would have a range of use classes with B1, B2, B8, with associated on-site parking for 17 vehicles. The application site is situated off New Hall Street on the corner of Elm Street and is within the defined settlement boundary of the local plan. There are no other constraints on the site, although the site is adjacent but not within a biological heritage site, and also near an area of protected open space. Currently on the site, there is a children's nursery with an existing vehicular access off New Hall Street and a boundary treatment, which is a 2.5 metre high mesh fence. The surrounding area set out in the report is a mix in nature, and then you'll be able to see sort of some of the surrounding residential properties and commercial uses in the pictures. So the application, which has been through pre-application with officers, initially came in as the erection of 9 units. However, that was over and above sort of what was discussed at pre-application, and whilst the application's been live, it was amended to 7, taking into account the comments of consultees and neighbours. The scheme, as you'll see within the submitted drawings, it'll be roughly 50 metres in length, 30 metres in width, and will be a dark grey clad, sort of typical of a development of this type. Up and over roller shutter doors and pedestrian footway with high level window openings on the southern elevation, noting that there is going to be parking for 17 vehicles with 2 accessible and also provision for cycles. There would be landscaping created along the western boundary, and also the perimeter fence would remain. Proposed operational hours for the units would be 9 till 6, Monday to Saturday. In terms of consultee responses, the Canal and Rivers Trust haven't raised an objection, but have requested details on the construction method statement, just to ensure that there's no sort of seepage of anything into the canal that is recommended in the conditions. And the Coal Authority have not objected, but have recommended conditions. The scheme itself, as noted, which has gone through a revision, has had 2 rounds of public consultation. In the first round, we received 31 letters, and then in the second round, we received a further 10. You'll note the objections are set out in the report. There has been some history to the site. Obviously, as noted, we had the pre-application last year, and then in 2009, it was a change of the use of the nursery into office space plus an extension. Obviously, that never went ahead. Other consultation responses that haven't offered any objections from environmental health, the health and safety executive, just some additional comments from Lancashire Fire and Rescue with regards to building regulations that they fall outside of planning. It's sort of had quite a bit of attention from LCC Highways, who've, having looked at it, have noted that there would be a requirement for a Section 278 agreement for some adjacent traffic regulation orders. That's set out in detail in that section of the report. With regards to the principle of the development, as noted, it is within the defined development area. And we do have a policy, which is policy EM3 of the local plan, which supports the expansion and upgrading of businesses where they don't have an unacceptable negative impact on uses, residential amenity, or impact on townscape. In that policy, whilst it's not necessarily an upgrade to the existing use on the site, which would be the nursery, it is an upgrade of the site for business uses. So that the principle is therefore acceptable. The main issues then are the design and appearance, the impact on residential amenity and traffic and parking. As you'll note within the report, there is a strong emphasis to ensure that the design is in keeping. Obviously, given the use of the site and the intended occupiers, it is a build that you would expect with profiled cladding, just to give it that industrial appearance, but also make sure it's not an incongruous addition. So we therefore feel that that's acceptable with the landscaping. With regards to residential amenity, the report does set out in detail the separation distances, which are considered to be compliant, and we've got no concerns with them. We do have recommended conditions from environmental health in terms of limiting the noise that can be generated from the site. Obviously, there are residential units in close proximity, but the use of conditions would prevent any harm occurring from there. As noted with the traffic and parking, there has been that request for the traffic regulation order, which would need to be satisfied to allow the development to commence. And whilst noting that there have been objections received around parking in the area, Lancashire County Council feel that there is an appropriate level following the revised plans and change to the number of units. Therefore, in conclusion, we feel that it's an acceptable use on a site that's generally characterised as a mixed-use commercial area. There are sufficient conditions to prevent any harm to amenity, and subject to the conditions set out and the revisions put forward in the update report, we're recommending approval, Chair.
Right, thank you very much for that. So move on to any members.
Councillor Graham, Chair.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Graham.
Yep, you're on, Sue. Oh, no, you. There you go,
Oh, yes,
you're on now.
I am on now. I was trying to unmute it from here and you were trying to unmute it from there. Can I ask a question about the hours of operation? I noticed on page 47 that the proposed operation hours are 8 AM to 6 PM, Monday to Saturday. And then when you look at condition 16, no, not condition 16. Where am I? Sorry. Just bear with me. I'll get to the right thing. Oh yeah, condition 18, I think it is. It says no machinery shall be operated, no process shall be carried out, no deliveries taken out or dispatched from the site outside the following times: 8 AM to 5 PM Monday to Friday, and 8 AM to 1 PM Saturdays, and nor at any other time on Sundays, bank or public holidays. I know that's a standard, fairly standard condition, but it's not the same as the hours of operation that the applicant has asked for, particularly Saturday hours of opening, and it's an enforcement issue waiting to happen. Is that? Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Anwar, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Anwar, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just first of all, yeah, in terms of the questions on clarification that Councillor Graham has asked for, that would be welcome. But I just wanted to say that I grew up literally around the corner from where the current site is and know the area well. And as far back as I can remember, it's always been a commercial area with the Northbridge House and the different businesses that operate from Elm Street on there. And the site itself used to be the Elm Street Nursery and has been closed for just over 10 years since when the nursery moved over to the new site on Burnley campus, and it's been derelict since that time. The other thing to add to that with regards to traffic, I think one of the things to remember as part of that is that when it was a nursery, then people were visiting during those times, but that part of the ward, that part of the area is used to people coming and going for work and for commercial reasons, and like I said, it's always been used for those reasons, and so for that reason I'd like to move the application for approval.
Right, yeah, thank you very much. I made a note of that.
I'll second it.
Who's that? Sorry.
That was Councillor Graham, Chair.
Oh, Councillor Graham. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't.
I'm happy to second the approval. I've got nothing against the development. I just want the hours of opening clarified by the planning officer, please.
Yeah. Yeah, would you like to come back on that, Ali?
Yeah, through you, Chair. It's my understanding that as part of the discussions, the applicant has had sight of the conditions and agreed to those. So whilst they've set out what those hours that they were seeking are, they have subsequently agreed the conditions that the officers sort of set out from consultees.
Right.
Happy with that, Chair.
Yeah, well, that's good. Right. Any other member?
There aren't any, Chair.
No, right. Oh, well, we'll move to the vote then.
To the vote? So it's
well, do we need to go through everyone, or can we just move it and if there's any objections, or do we need to go through all the names?
Yeah.
Well, we would normally go through all. Thank you, Chair. We'd normally go through all the names, but if anybody would like to speak out against the application, if they were to say so now, we could take that as a unanimous decision. Is anybody against that application? And we take that as the application. Happy with that? Chair, are you happy with that?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just trying to speed things up a little. If there's no objections, we'll move. We'll move for approval. Yeah.
Chair, that's fine.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
So
if you
it's
just
approved.
bear with me, I'll just let Councillor Ishtiaq back into the meeting.
Right. Okay.
Councillor Ishtiaq? Yep, he's back with us.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. So, right, moving on to 144 Oxford Road, Burnley.
Okay, we have Mr. Bowlby to speak.
Yeah, just checking on. Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, Mr. Bowlby, yeah. You have, I presume you're with us, aren't you?
He's in the meeting. I'm not sure he's just at his computer, Chair. Mr. Bowlby?
Hello?
Oh, yeah, he is with us.
Yes.
Right,
Sorry.
yeah, Mr. Bowlby, you've 5 minutes to speak. Whenever you start.
Thank you, sir. On this application, the applicants did seek architect's advice, professional advice, and they were told that they didn't need planning permission for this dormer window as it complied with permitted development regulations. In fact, this property sits right on the border of the northern tip of the conservation area, and the dormer, in fact, faces away from the conservation area. So the dormer can't be seen from this conservation area, and it is in keeping with the character and appearance of it. So we ask you to grant planning permission for it for 3 reasons. Firstly, the loft conversion complies with policy HE2. It does no harm to, quotes, design, character and architectural features of interest, appearance, structure and principal components, unquote. It reuses the existing historic slate tiles. It is lower than and subordinate to the ridge line of the existing building at 144 and the terrace behind. And from key angles from which most people will view it, it is virtually invisible. It uses, quotes, traditional local materials and respects local building techniques and details as policy HE2 requires. Those materials have always been in place, they are being reused. Secondly, this proposal, this dormer window, complies with policy HS5. It will be lower than the ridge line of 144 Oxford Road and of the terrace behind. It will, quotes, respect the architectural characteristics, scale and detailing of 144 Oxford Road, and it uses complementary materials. So in addition, it creates no problem with overshadowing or overlooking, and the planning officer is clear the scheme would not be detrimental to the amenity of neighbouring residents and complies with policy HS4. There have been no public objections to this application of any kind. The applicants have had nothing but positive comments from neighbours about it. Thirdly, this application complies with policy HE1. Now, that policy in this respect refers only to contribution to local identity and distinctiveness, which this proposal does nothing to harm. The distinctiveness of the conservation area isn't harmed by a strictly residential development, a dormer window, in a historically residential area. And the impact on residential amenity will be entirely on these applicants' residential amenity. These are good people. Their aim in proposing this dormer window is so that they can remain financially and physically independent, now working from home and in retirement, so they can be self-sufficient without having to rely on the council for support. And the purpose of this application, this dormer window, for this room is to enable them to achieve this economically sustainable and pro-social outcome. It is good for them, it's good for the wider community. Now, the planning officer's report, we say, is a little unfair in that it shows this dormer window taken from what we say is an artificial angle, a very steep angle that most people won't view it from. Most people will view, 99% of people will view this proposal, or this dormer window, from 2 angles. Firstly, going south down Oxford Road, and secondly, from the west along Brunswick Street, from which it is almost invisible. Now, if I show you the view from Oxford Road, if you can see that, you can just about see the dormer window. It complies, it fits with the pattern of horizontal and vertical roof tiles. That is the main view, walking down Oxford Road. And if you walk a little further on Oxford Road, if you imagine you're a pedestrian, that is what you see. So you see, again, you can see it there, it looks larger there because you're closer to it, but again, it fits in with that pattern of horizontal and vertical roof tiling that is prevalent behind and in front of the development. Now, from the west, Brunswick Street, it is, you can't see it. It is pretty much invisible. You have to have it pointed out to you to be able to see it. And we say that is because it is consistent, it is compatible with the character and appearance of this area as it is required to be. Now, this property in any event has always been distinctive. It has always been different from the rest of the terrace because it forms a large, bulky bookend to that terrace, and it is intended to do so. It was a shop. It's the only house with large
The
shop
5
windows.
minutes is almost up.
Sorry?
I'm saying your 5 minutes is nearly up, Mr. Bowlby.
Thank you, yes. And it has a large corner doorway, and it forms a hammerhead to the terrace. It is a large T that projects out onto the pavement. So it is appropriate that it is slightly distinctive, and therefore we ask you to grant planning permission for it so that we can conserve this property for future needs as well as current residential needs. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much. With officers' report, I think, is Alec doing it again?
Yeah, it is myself, Chair. I'll be doing all of them this evening.
All right, yeah.
Yep, so thank you. So the application is HOU 2019-0607, which is 144 Oxford Road, Burnley. As noted, the application site is an end terraced. The development itself has been the subject of an enforcement inquiry that came forward. An assessment was done, and it was noted whilst it was under construction that it wasn't permitted development. The applicant was advised to stop the development in that they would need planning consent. It was ultimately finished, as can be seen per the photograph submitted, and that is the application that's before us, is to retain what is visible on site. I think the report does set out in detail the impact with regard to the conservation area and the design. It is noted that there is no impact on amenity. However, we have received an objection, and that is with regard to it being constructed without planning consent or building regulations approval. It's just as a point of clarification. I think in noting the development itself, I would say that the pictures are taken at street level. They are taken on the views of somebody walking past. You can clearly see the development. It is a certain incongruous addition to the surrounding area, and for that reason, we set out a recommendation to refuse the retrospective application. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you very much for that. So, any member?
No members have requested to speak on this item, Chair. Oh, I think Councillor Graham has just put one in.
Oh, right. Councillor Graham, whenever.
I'm not quick enough off the mark there. I agree with the planning officer's report. It's an overbearing, really quite ugly addition to this building. I accept that the building isn't in particularly nice shape at the moment, but you'll see that it's in a conservation area. It's very near to St Stephen's Church, and a lot of work has gone into this area in the last few years to improve it, to make it a more desirable area in which to live. And ugly additions like this detract from that work and all the investment that the council and central government's put into the area. I think also you've got to be aware that if this is allowed, it basically sets a precedent. Anybody in that conservation area will think that they can go and do the same thing, and that would be awful. So I think we should accept the planning officer's report and refuse the application. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you.
Chair?
Yes?
Yeah, we've had Councillor Birtwistle, Councillor Anwar, Councillor Kelly and Councillor Sumner.
Oh.
And Alison, I've requested
Hang
as
on,
well.
I can't write that quickly. Sorry,
Do you want me to give them? Oh, sorry, you're right at the end of the list, Councillor Johnston. So Councillor Birtwistle and Councillor Anwar first, Chair.
Yeah, councillor Birtwistle.
Right. Thank you, Chairman. I think reading this, it's a very unfortunate situation that the resident who lives in that property is in. The report says that he had begun creating a dormer, and the planning department advised the planning consent was not required for a side dormer. Now the planning department say they have no record of that advice being given. I've been down to look at this, and I must confess that the diversity of the buildings down there are amazing. You've got Tomerton Road with big terraced houses with dormers on the top, 4 and 5 story high, some of them. We've got Russell, I think it's called Russell Terrace, Russell Place, where they are extremely, like what you call modern or late 50s type houses, which are flat faced and very little character. And then you've got Oxford Road, which are the traditional stone built properties. And then apart from those, we have this big development that's in Burnley Wood for all these new houses that are built that are nothing like the traditional houses. They're all very modern, up-to-date houses. That if somebody wants to say that they don't match in, well, they certainly don't match in. So the area itself is very diverse. There are lots of different diverse buildings with different things on them. So the new houses are 3 and 4 stories high. I do agree with what's been said about we shouldn't. It should have gone for planning permission, and I really feel for the applicant. But I don't think it's all that bad. I have to say that I've been to have a look down. I do agree with the gentleman that spoke before. You've got to look for it to find it, and I think we should, on this occasion, allow it to remain where it is. I would support that we allow him to carry on with this because he's right on the edge of the conservation area. He's facing away from the conservation area. I do agree that if somebody else comes along with a similar thing, we've set a precedent, but that will be in the conservation area, which is obviously higher up Oxford Road. So it's a fine line. It's a fine line, but I would like to see this extension, this dormer in the top of these properties. I would like to see it remain there. Thank you, Chair.
Right, yeah, thank you. So we've got Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say, make the points that Councillor Graham made before me in terms of. I live not too far from there, and you can see that dormer, and it's not attractive, and it doesn't fit in. But for me, it's more about the message that this sends out. It's that there's no record of the applicant approaching the planning team for advice. There's no record of that. And if we allow this, then basically we're setting a precedent that other people can just go off and do what they want and then come back and put in a retrospective application. So I'll be voting against it.
It was. Sorry, councillors Kelly, Sumner, and Johnston next, Chair.
Right, Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Chair. I'll be quick. I do agree with Councillor Graham in that we don't want to set a precedent. I think that is a problem. On the other hand, I wouldn't like to think that it's because it's a retrospective application that we're kind of punishing the man, because we've had retrospective applications before, and I wouldn't like it to be seen that it's because it's retrospective that we're refusing it. And I think there's an element of that. Up to very recently, my grandchildren lived on the part of the new part of Burnley Wood, and up to all this lockdown, I was going up there 2 or 3 times a week. And I have to say that dormer did not jump out and hit me as being incongruous and, you know, out of place. One of the things when we're talking about things being out of place, it's different. But actually, that area's got all sorts of different buildings to start with, and just because one's got a dormer, I don't think that makes that much difference to the look of the whole area. So, thank you very much, Chair.
Right, yeah, thanks, Councillor Kelly. We've got Councillor Sumner.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me there? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Bobby for his report. I've got 5 points of observation. First of all, there does seem to have been a mix-up at the outset of this work from both parties. Secondly, there's no detrimental impact on the conservation area. 3, the officers have already agreed that the scheme complies with policy HS4, part 3, at residential amenity on page 64. 4, there's been no objections from the public or the services. 5, the new building's not 100 metres away of dormers. And finally, as a ward councillor for Burnley Wood, I would like to inform members that there must be over 200 terraced houses that need some sort of renovating in Burnley Wood. And my feelings are that if residents want to put their own money into improving their property and make it nice and livable, then we should applaud them, not knock them back. So on that note, Chair, I would like to propose that we accept the application for approval and not refusal. Thank you.
Right, so you're going against the officer recommendation?
I am, Chair, thank you.
Yeah, right. Have we missed anybody out? Councillor Johnson?
Councillor Johnston.
Yeah, Councillor Johnston.
Marcus, sorry, if you start again.
Right, okay, sorry, how's that?
Yep.
I accept the points that have been made about the precedent, and I think that's an important point, and it really is not acceptable for anyone just to plough on regardless of the planning advice that they've been given. And I think we need to send out a strong message on that. However, can I ask what the consequences of refusing this retrospectively are? Would that mean, in effect, that the dormer has to be removed and it has to be demolished? Is that the consequence? And what sort of time frame would the applicant be given to remove the dormer? What conditions would we impose on putting the work right? How in practical terms would refusal work?
Yeah, would Alec like to come back on that one?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. But it would be dependent on if the application was refused and the applicant chose to appeal the decision. At that point, we wouldn't take any enforcement action until the outcome of an appeal decision had been heard. Following that, depending on what route taken, if it was that no appeal came forward, then yeah, in this instance, it's felt that the harm caused by the development is that significant that it would warrant public interest to ensure enforcement is there. With regards to timescales, to any sort of removal, if it got that far, then that would be something that would be discussed at the time, that may be agreed with the applicant if it is reasonable.
Yeah, can I just come back on that and unpick some of them? Obviously, it depends on whether there's an appeal. Where that goes without saying. But just to put it in broad, blunt terms, if we refuse this, potentially, could we be telling this person they have to demolish half their house?
Yes, we would be seeking that the development is put back to what it was. It is considered that harmful that we would seek the development to revert back to the original roof type. Yes.
Okay. Can I ask, are there any precedents of this? Because this is quite a major step. Telling someone you've got to demolish half your house. Are there any precedents? How has this happened elsewhere? Because I can't remember a time when we've told someone. Well, I can remember a time actually. A farmhouse in Briarcliff many years ago. But can I ask, what do we have any precedents? What is the steer that you get in a case like this?
It would be something that Paul would probably have to come in on, given my limited time at Burnley. If you're talking about precedents within the borough, in terms of in my experience of planning terms, then It's happened a number of times where we have sought unauthorised development be removed and the site, the ground, whatever it may be, replaced to its original standard and format.
Okay, right. Yeah, no, thank you. That's answered the question. I appreciate you can't answer it fully, but thank you.
Chair,
Yeah,
Councillor Hosker has requested to speak.
Yeah, Councillor Hosker.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's just a concern about this, Chair, and I'll tell you for why. You've got a situation here now where if we refuse it tonight, you have to knock it to bits, correct?
Yeah, possible.
Right, possibly knock it to bits. Now, what my concern is, in Gorthorpe Ward, we have a shop, don't we, John Harbour? What's just made alterations to the front of it without planning permission. You know that, I know that, John. When people start doing this, and they start doing all these alterations without coming to us first and getting planning permission, it's happening, Chair, too often. It happened at Cambridge Drive and they put that big skip it back. They put the skip it back, then come to us for planning permission. It's happened again with Chicken Yard. They put a generator back of their Chicken Yard, then come to us for planning permission. It's happening with that shop on Argove now, and it's getting too frequent, but we're here to do a public duty. And I think the officers should be making people realise this.
Yeah, again, Councillor Oscar, we've got to look at each one in its own merits. But yeah, I'll take your point. Are there any other members wishing to speak? We've got, at the moment, we've got Councillor Sumner, who's moved for rejection. Well, rejection. He's moved, or rather, he's moved to approve the
application.
The application against officer recommendation.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So have you got a seconder?
I'll second that. I'll second that.
Is that Councillor Russell?
It is, yes.
Yeah, right.
So Councillor Sumner, as I understand it, is proposing refusal to the refusal that's been put on this application.
And the officers. Yeah.
So that will mean that the application is not refused and the dormer remains. Yes. As I understand it. I might need some legal advice on that, but that's, as I understood, what Councillor Sumner has moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chair, that's how I'm understanding it, that Councillor Sumner has moved to go against the recommendation and for the granting of the application.
That's right, Emma.
Yeah, do we need some reason for that? Do we need
You would have to give some reasons to it, Chair, yes, because it's going against officer recommendation.
Yeah, so would you like to, Councillor Sumner, would you like to sort of try and move something as to why we should go against officer recommendation?
Thank you, Chair. Well, like I said, there's a couple of things there. There's no detrimental impact on a conservation area. The officers already agreed the scheme complies with policy HS4, part 3. There's been no objection from the public or the services. And right from the outset, both parties are blaming each other. There's nothing in writing from both sides to say if they got permission or they didn't get permission. I don't know if you can use any of that, but Gordon wants to come in with it.
Yeah, I think the first 3, Chair, would be sufficient reasons to give. I don't think there's any need to specify the reason about whether or not there was this conversation with planning beforehand.
Absolutely.
Certainly the first 3 could be used as grounds for the reason for the decision.
Okay. Right.
Chair, sorry, could I just come in, Chair? Can I just be clear that, whilst it's noted, they said they spoke to officers, it was whilst the application was being brought to light that the original architect was the person who advised that it was permitted development. And and obviously, yeah, there is no record, and I know that came about, but the actual details of it being was private advice that the applicant had sought, and not officer advice.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Thank you for that.
To be fair, that's not been mentioned in the move for rejection, has it?
No.
As legal have just said, the first 3 items would.
Well, forget the fourth one. Chair.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's how I understand it. So, are we okay to move to a vote? Because we've got a move to refuse the officers' advice.
Yes, Chair, perhaps if we go for against officer recommendation, might be easier for members to vote.
Yeah.
Going against.
Yeah, because we've got Councillor Sumner moved it and Councillor Birtwistle seconded it.
Correct.
So
Okay.
Obviously we'll
I'll
have
go
to
the
move.
vote.
This will have to be a name vote, won't it?
Yes, it will, Chair.
Yeah.
It's against officer recommendation. So, Councillor Anwar, are you going?
What?
For,
I'm not sure I want to go first on
are
this
you going
one.
against? Are you going against the officer? Against the officer recommendation.
I'm for the officer recommendation.
So you're against Councillor Sumner's motion then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Again.
Thank
yes.
you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Alison. Councillor Birtwistle.
Against officer recommendation.
That's 4.
4.
Say that again.
Yeah, it's right.
You're voting for Councillor Sumner's motion,
Yes.
Councillor Birtwistle, so you're going
Which is
against the officer recommendation.
Yeah.
Correct.
Getting me confused now. Councillor Kant.
Against.
Councillor Emo. 4. I can hear. Is that right?
I've just unmuted you, Councillor. If you could just repeat that.
4. Councillor Graham. Can't hear you, Councillor Graham. You're muted.
You're not now.
Sorry, I'm confused because sometimes Alison unmutes me and sometimes I have to do it myself. I am for refusal. I'm in accordance with the officer report.
So you're against. Yeah, you're against.
I'm against Sumner.
Motion.
Always
Yes,
against Sumner.
Councillor Hall.
Oh, that's good to know.
Councillor Harbour.
Excuse me, Chair.
Against.
Excuse me, Chair. I'm not happy what she said there, Councillor Graham.
I was making a joke.
I don't think so. So I'm not happy about that, Councillor Chair.
And continue, Councillor Hosker.
Yeah, I'm against it because we should have had a planning application in, so I'm against it.
Yes. Okay. Councillor Ishtiak.
Against.
Councillor Johnston.
Abstain.
Councillor Kelly.
4.
Councillor Khan. Lubna Khan. Sorry, got you. Thank you. Councillor Mottershead.
Against.
Councillor Payne. Councillor Payne with us?
Yep, he is with us.
Against?
Yep.
Councillor Sumner?
For.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So that motion, Councillor Sumner has been lost.
Okay.
So we now need to go for the refusal. So we'll go for the officer recommendation. So we have to vote again. Councillor Anwar?
For refusal, i.e. with the officer recommendation.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. Councillor Birtwistle?
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Kant?
4.
Thank you. Councillor Emo?
Sorry, I'm just trying to find Councillor Emo to unmute him. He's moved on my screen. You're unmuted now, Councillor.
Yeah.
Councillor Emo?
For refusal, yes. Councillor Graham?
Councillor Graham?
Sorry, Alison, I'm for refusal for the officer.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Thank you.
Against.
Councillor Hall, again.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Harbour.
For.
Councillor Ishtiaq. Councillor sorry, Councillor Hosker, I missed you out, sorry.
Yeah, I'm always getting missed out. You caught on.
Sorry.
I'm going to abstain on this one.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Johnston.
Reluctantly for.
Okay. Councillor Kelly.
Against.
Councillor Khan. Sorry, was that for? Councillor Mottershead.
For.
Councillor Payne.
For.
And Councillor Sumner.
Against.
Okay, so the item has gone with officer recommendation and is refused.
Yeah, that's so that's refused.
Thank you, Chair.
I knew it was going to be one of those meetings. Right, next on the agenda is number 26, Prairie Crescent, Burnley. On this one, we done. Yeah, no, we've no speakers now.
No, there are no more speakers tonight, Chair.
No, I'm just checking. Yeah, no more speakers. So yeah, what I was saying, yeah, 26 Prairie Crescent, Burnley. So if you give the officers report, please, Alan.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, so this is a part retrospective application for an extension to a front porch. It's a relatively minor application. There was an application approved in May 2019 that formed a front porch side and rear wraparound extension. Subsequently on officer visits, it was noted that the porch was slightly larger than approved. As such, we invited an application to remedy the breach. The application's been submitted. We did get one neighbour objection, noting that it does come forward further than what was approved. And it would impact on the outlook of the street. The Highways Authority have commented on it, and they've got no objection subject to conditions. The officer who dealt with this application did deal with the original, as they've set out in their report. It is generally minor changes that are proposed for the porch. It doesn't give rise to any detrimental impact in its design. It doesn't pose any issues around highway safety. And subsequently, it's recommended for approval subject to the details set out. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. So, any member?
Yeah, Chair,
I haven't received. Oh.
Sorry, am I all right to speak?
Councillor Ishtiaq's requesting to speak, Chair.
Oh, right, yeah, Councillor it's me.
Yeah, can I recommend it for approval, please?
You move it for approval.
Yes, that's right, Chair.
Yeah, that's
Chair, can I second that?
Oh, yeah, right, now, Councillor Graham, yeah.
There are no other members requested to speak, Chair.
are members happy then to just go to the vote and, as we did earlier on, do we need a name vote or is there anyone?
Mr. Chair, unless anybody against the application.
Is anyone against this?
If no one's against the application.
Chairman, I'll be voting against it.
Oh, right. So we need to.
Right,
yeah.
okay, we need to go to a vote.
Yeah, would you like to speak, Councillor Birtwistle?
No, I just think it looks hideous, so I'll be voting against it.
Oh, right,
Okay.
yeah. Fair enough.
I take it that hideous is now a technical planning term.
Okay, so we'll go for a name vote then, now, Chair. Okay.
Right, yes, yeah, fine.
Councillor Anwar, for or against
For.
approval? Okay, Councillor Birtwistle.
Against.
Thank you, Councillor Cant.
For.
Councillor Emo.
Councillor Emo? Councillor Emo?
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Graham. Thank you. Councillor Hall. Councillor Harbour.
For.
Councillor Hosker.
Then.
Did you say abstain, Councillor?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Ishtiak. For you. Yeah. Has Councillor Ishtiak voted?
Councillor Ishtiak?
Thank you. Councillor Johnston?
For.
Councillor Kelly?
For.
Councillor Khan?
For.
Councillor Mottershead?
For.
Councillor Payne?
For.
Councillor Sumner?
Against.
Thank you. The application
Right,
is
thank
approved,
you.
Chair.
Yeah, that's right. So, moving on, we've got Maybury Avenue, number 2, Maybury Avenue.
Thank you, Chair. So the application is HOU 2020-0007. It is for a first floor modest extension over a single story side extension. The property itself is a semi-detached, part bricks, part rendered property. The extension would, as you can see in your report, sit above the existing extension to the side. It's not doesn't have a significantly big projection, but it would facilitate the expansion of the property for an additional bedroom. It is at the committee because we received an objection from the adjoining semi-detached. The reason being that the side extension on the adjoining property was required at planning stage to have a setback at first floor for their 2-story extension. With this application, given that it is such a minor projection out, officers thought that the design was appropriate not to seek a setback. It's felt that the scheme is acceptable in terms of its residential amenity. There's no additional or harmful overlooking that would arise. The design in itself, as it is relatively minor, and the use of matching materials would mean that it does have a similar design and appearance to the 2 buildings as a whole. As such, it was recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you very much for that. Right, any members?
Councillor Mottershead, please, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Motterhead, you go ahead whenever you're ready.
Move it, Chair.
You want to move it, right? Any other member?
Second it.
Was that
Councillor Anwar.
Councillor Armour? Oh, right. Any other members wishing to speak on this one?
I haven't received any requests, Chair.
again, would councillors wish to proceed without a name vote? Are there anyone who's likely to be against this proposal?
I've unmuted everybody, so if anybody wishes to vote against, if they just speak now. I think we can take that as the assent of the meeting, Chair.
Right, so that application
Yes,
is
unanimous
approved.
decision there, Chair.
Yeah, that application's been approved. And next one on the agenda is 88 Westbourne Avenue South.
Sorry, Chair, it's actually 86 Westbourne Avenue. It was a mistake on the agenda. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, I think that was.
The report is correct. The agenda was wrong. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, Ali?
Yep, thank you, Chair. So the application is HOU 2020-0195. As stated, it is 86 Westbourne Avenue. The application itself was before the committee because the applicant is an officer of the council. It's worth noting we've had no objections. The scheme is considered to be acceptable in terms of its design, impact on amenity and highways. I don't think there's anything additional to add to the report, Chair.
Right, that's fine. Yeah, thank you very much.
Move it, Chair.
Second it.
Right, so I think that was, I don't know who moved it.
Councillor Graham, Chair, and then Councillor Kelly seconded.
Right, okay. Can we adopt the same procedure as last application? Is there anyone?
Everyone's unmuted. Everybody's unmuted, councillors.
Would anyone wish to object to this? Or can we move on?
Exactly.
Move on.
Right.
Okay. Chair, I'll take that as a unanimous decision.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. So that was approved. And we now go to number 32, Iton Road, Burnley. Again, if Alec would come in, and you're working as hard as me tonight, Alec.
That's all right, no problem, Chair. Thank you. Yeah, the application is VAR 2020-0071. This application is seeking to vary conditions on a previous approval at 32 Iton Road. That was for the erection of a detached property that sat within a site. The conditions that they're seeking to change have been brought about for two reasons. One of them being that we did receive a complaint that was investigated, and having been out on site, it became apparent that the property was slightly larger in height than what was approved. So we advised them that they would need to regularise that through an application. The most appropriate one being a variation. It was also shown that some of the windows weren't in the correct position as approved on plan. Similarly, they were advised to include that. One of the conditions on the original application did require details of landscaping to be submitted before they were put in. However, it was more appropriate in this instance to deal with that condition while dealing with the two enforcement matters. As I say, the drawings do set out the changes. Sort of they are quite modest in nature. The height itself, it isn't until you actually get out and laser measure that you can appreciate that there is a height difference. We have received objections to it, although they raise a number of concerns in and around the original approval, and that has been approved, and we don't revisit the original approval, just what is the changes that are being sought. the report again does set out that the height doesn't give rise to any further additional impacts over and above what was previously approved. The windows are in acceptable locations. They don't give rise to additional overlooking or impact on privacy. And then finally, the landscaping scheme that was submitted. It is a modest plot. It is acceptable. What they've proposed, it doesn't result in any detrimental impacts on any of the residential properties surrounding the site. Therefore, for that reason, we recommend approval of the varied conditions, subject to those set out. Thank you, Chair.
Right, yeah, thank you very much for that. Again, any member?
Nobody's put a request in, Chair.
Somebody willing to
Move it, Chair.
Is that Councillor Harbour?
I think it was Councillor Mottershead.
Councillor Mottershead, yeah, fine.
Seconder. Seconded.
Councillor Anwar.
Councillor Elmore. Again, I'll try and deal with this the same way as I did the last two.
Chair, if you wish, I'll unmute all members so that anybody wishing to signal their dissent, just bear with me. Everybody's now unmuted.
Yeah, thank you. If are there anyone having any objections to the application?
I have none, Chair.
You have?
I have none.
Oh, you have none. Oh, right.
I'm happy.
Right.
So
Thank you, Marcus, for that.
Happy.
So we'll take it as a unanimous.
Chair.
Yeah. So that application is then approved.
Thank you, Chair.
And that ends items on deposited plans. We now move to item 7, which are decisions taken by the scheme of delegation. Have we any comments about any of those decisions?
I've not received anything from any member, Chair.
Well, we'll move on then. And item 8, appeals and other decisions. I think we'd.
I'm not sure if the planning officer wishes to speak to any of those.
Unless there's any questions, Imelda, then no, nothing to add.
Thank you.
No. No comments from anyone?
No. And we'll take them
I've
as
not
noted,
received
Chair.
anything, Chair.
In which case, I will close the meeting and thank you all very much for your attendance.